Welcome to the Crosscheck, the squawk sheet that uncovers the stories, challenges, and careers shaping business aviation today. I'm your host, Rob Hoffman.
And I'm Ian Lum.
We're going vertical today and taking a peek at the other side of business aviation, Rotary Wing. Today's guest is Halsey Schider. He's a helicopter pilot, jet and rotorcraft broker, entrepreneur, and host of the Helicopter podcast. Whether he's flying, closing deals, or interviewing industry titans, Halsey brings a unique perspective to aviation that few can match. So on that note, let's get into it. Halsey, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
So Halsey, I was already on your podcast. We talked about eVTOLs, but there's so much more to discuss, and it obviously always starts on where your aviation journey began. Talk to us about how you got into the industry.
Yeah, well, first off, guys, thanks for having me on, and congrats on what you guys are doing. It's fun to see more aviation-specific podcasts coming into the space, and I love having these conversations, and I just think it's really neat what you and Ian are doing. So thanks for having me. Excited to be here. For me, aviation was not a choice. I guess I would say aviation was just something that picked me. Some of my earliest memories, I'll be in my backyard as a little kid, putting sticks together in a shape of an airplane and then sitting in the front and pretending to fly the airplane and, living in this imagination world, so to speak. And I was lucky to have wonderful parents that would take us on yearly vacations places, and that usually included an airplane ride. And you would think I would be excited for, going to Mexico or Arizona or Florida or Disney World, whatever it was. I was most excited for the airplane ride. I couldn't wait to get in the airplane. I was always like that kid that had to, sit in the cockpit and get my picture taken. And luckily, back in those days, that was a little bit easier, and pilots were always stoked to do that. So yeah, aviation was just always what was going to be the thing. Then when I got a little bit older, started with a program called the Civil Air Patrol. It's auxiliary of the Air Force. I can't speak too much about it, to be honest. It was so long ago. But I essentially tell people it's kind of like Boy Scouts, but with a little bit of a military vibe, so you learn how to do drill, you wear your, Air Force blues, and then you get to do some glider flying, some airplane flying. Started flight lessons when I was 15 in a 1946 Aranca Champ, soloed on my 16th birthday, ran out of money, and took a fat loan out when I turned 18, started flying helicopters kind of by happen chance.
Well, what drew you to the helicopters specifically? That's a big sort of detour from fixed wing.
Yeah, no, totally. So originally I was Maverick, man. That was the other part of growing up. I watched Top Gun every single day, and that's almost true, if not true, especially when I was fairly small. And so that was my goal, right? I wanted to be a naval aviator, wanted to fly fighter jets. So I actually ended up going to Embry-Riddle from college for 1 year out of high school. And my parents said, hey, look, we can afford this school for 1 year. And other than that, you got to get a scholarship. And so go, good luck and do good. And so good and bad, I got a scholarship through the ROTC program, but it was under a ground contract. And I don't know the logistics of all that, to be honest. It was a long time ago, but, essentially it wouldn't be guaranteeing me a flight opportunity. I could have still gone to Embry-Riddle, had all my flight training paid for, gone through all the rest of college for free. They would have reimbursed, I think, my freshman year as well. But it just felt weird to me to go through all that aviation life and building that career, then to go serve on the ground. And so it just wasn't something that I thought was the best choice for me. And so I decided to leave Embry-Riddle, kind of throw away my fighter pilot dreams. It sounds like I gave up so easy, which is not great, but there was a lot going on. And I think ultimately I made the right decision. And I was actually going to come back and go to a school in Utah that had great skiing. Florida at Embry-Riddle had no skiing. I'm an avid skier. So I picked a school. It's called Westminster out of Utah. A little more of a diverse ratio, so to speak, as well at the college. Not all dudes, which I was excited about. And maybe just a little bit more of a college experience. The ROTC was awesome, But man, that was like between full-time school and doing the ROTC, it wasn't much of a life. So I was excited to do that. Before got all my financing lined up for that, student loans. On my birthday, coming into the summer, my parents got me a demo flight at Hillsborough Aviation, which is pretty close to where I grew up. And I took a helicopter ride, and we landed on a building, 61 Juliet, downtown Portland. By the end of the week, I had a student loan for that school. I had a job there working line service, and I haven't looked back.
That's awesome. Yeah, my wife bought me a helicopter lesson for my birthday, and that was another mistake. I did not take it nearly as far as you, but there were, it's one of those things where they, both flight schools, whether it's fixed wing or rotary, they give you the intro flight for peanuts, and then it's like a drug dealer, and they know you're coming back for more.
Oh,
which I did.
It's the greatest secret, and I got really lucky because the gal that did my demo flight, she was brand new. She didn't know what she was doing. It's supposed to be a 0.3. You're supposed to like go lap around the farm fields in Hillsborough, Oregon, not fly a 0.8 to the downtown heliport and back. So they lost a little money, but I think they did all right at the end of the day.
They got it back in spades. Yeah, that worked out well. You thought that she didn't know what she was doing. They were whispering in her ear. Yeah.
Hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah, let's stop at the top of this building here. That's all you need. He'll be back.
Yeah, super cool. One of the only public heliports actually in the United States is there in Portland, Oregon. So that's neat to have access to that. I think they're resurfacing it right now, so I think it's actually closed. But that was one of the coolest things of learning how to fly, is actually taking students to go land on this 6-story smart park in downtown Portland.
So obviously you went all in. So you took it to the end there. You got your Rotary license. And then you kept going. You went commercial. Talk to us more about your transition into being a professional pilot.
Yeah, so I did the professional helicopter program there at Hillsborough, which is essentially 0 to hero. You graduate, so to speak, with a CFII. And, you're supposed to graduate with a CFII. I graduated with just a CFI. I didn't have my instrument, and I didn't have my II. Luckily, they were kind of in need for instructors, so they were like, all right, as long as you get that at some point, you can have the job. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll totally do that. I had no money, so I couldn't do that. But eventually was able to work it out with the school and got my instrument II. Worked as a CFI, teaching people how to fly helicopters. I think I was probably, 20 years old at the time. Awesome time, great memories. Flight instruction for me was actually one of the funnest jobs that I've had in aviation, and I can elaborate on that too if you want. But then worked my way into the management side of the flight school. I was working as the Part 141 assistant chief. I think we had about 38 rotor wing instructors. So, a big helicopter flight school, big airplane school too. And so that was interesting to be young in this kind of management role, totally out of my comfort zone, looking at Excel sheets. I didn't even know what Excel was. Typing emails, didn't know how to do that. All these things that you don't learn in high school, or at least I didn't. And so actually it was a great, kind of trial by fire. And I did well in that, kept progressing, ended up becoming a campus manager for their satellite location. And, ultimately was there for a long time. I think 5 or 6 years. Then moved out of that, took a detour in Texas, which I'm happy to talk about as well. That's kind of a big shape of my entrepreneurial journey. So I don't know if you want me to dive into that right now.
For it.
I feel like I'm talking a lot. So
well, that's what we're here to hear you talk. Everyone, all my listeners are sick and tired of hearing me talk right now. So this is about your story right now.
Yeah. So this was interesting. I went to Texas. I was about 24 years old, maybe 25, and I followed a girl down there. And maybe never a great idea, but it worked out. She's my wife, and we're happily married, expecting our first child in like hours right now as we sit here today. So that story worked out well. I had left a pretty good, salaried position at a flight school. I was also at that time flying in the charter department, so flying some turbine aircraft, doing off the ramp 135 work, whether it was tours or some survey. It was cool. I got to, experience turbine helicopters, specifically the Bell Jet Ranger and Long Ranger. And I quit all that. And I started parking cars at the Hilton Austin in Texas to be with this girl. I tried to apply for all these different piloting opportunities in Texas, and nothing really panned out. And so I just was like, I'm guessing everything will work out. So I just parked cars, had a good time. It was a time that I won't take back. Ended up getting invited to come to like a school essentially once a week to go and do some flight training as a backup guy. And it was not a great experience. But from that, I met this lady that was like, hey, I'm going to buy a helicopter and I'll need a pilot. I'm like, cool, sure. And 4 or 5 months later, I get a call and she bought a helicopter. So I ended up flying her around South Texas. She was in the oil business. She bought an R-44. It was a pretty cool gig. I would fly 3 days a week. I was making what felt to be pretty decent money at the time. Yeah, it was a cool experience. And then her husband fell ill, and she was like, "Hey, man, if you want to keep making money, you got to put the helicopter to work." And so I ended up starting a tour business out of the hill country of Texas, wine country, if you're familiar with like Fredericksburg area. And man, that was an incredible experience. It was nearly 2 years of just straight entrepreneurialism, trial by fire, getting your butt kicked left and right, horrible things happening most of the time, but some good things happening. I ended up taking like over 1,000 passengers in that time. The business had some profitability, but not really enough to keep her engaged and excited, specific to the liability of it all. So she was like, sorry, dude, but helicopter has to go, and I appreciate you. And so I helped her sell her helicopter. And that's when I started this idea of like, oh man, maybe I could sell helicopters. From there, went and flew at Maverick helicopters in the Grand Canyon. Kind of started as a hobby, selling some aircraft on the side. Cold call people on controller, trade a plane, kind of work my way in there. Got a job flying air medical out of Texas. Kept kind of doing that as a hobby, selling aircraft on the side. And then about 4 years ago, decided, I should put all my eggs in the helicopter sales business and rebrand it to Sellacopter. And here we are today. Got some sales reps. We move a lot of aircraft. And now we just launched a sister business called North American Aircraft Brokerage, which is doing the same thing, but trying to do it in the airplane space.
All right. So that's a big deal right there, that differentiator between helicopters and jets. Now, I want to dive into that. But before we even do that, you just kind of breezed over the whole medevac thing there. So that's kind of, for me, that's almost like stunt flying. That is not your ordinary 9 to 5 type of a job. Could we just dive into that real fast? Tell us more about that experience.
Yeah, totally. Well, air medical was the goal. Ever since I started flying helicopters, that was like my guiding light. How would I get into flying air medical? And I got hired by a company called Air Evac Life Team. They're a subsidiary of a large air medical holdings company called GMR. Now I think it was a different name when I was there. So first and foremost, shout out to Air Evac and GMR. Great organization, tremendous training, tremendous aircraft upgrades. They put glass in all their cockpits. They put autopilot. The training was extensive. They didn't treat crew, your nurse and paramedic, as like the self-loading baggage. It was like, these are important people. Even one of your crew members would wear night vision goggles along with you wearing NVGs at night. So outstanding program. I flew primarily the Bell 407, which is an awesome helicopter to fly, and I enjoyed that part of it. But soon very much realized that I hated the lifestyle. It's 7 on, 7 off. And every other week was nights, so essentially 1 week a month, you're doing a night shift. And again, to sound weak, like I gave up on my fighter jet career, but I hated that 1 week. The nights was so difficult for me because it would kill any productivity you could have in the daytime. And then it would kill productivity for like 2 or 3 days after, because you were just like in this
Some
weird.
people are good with having swing shifts, others are not.
Yeah.
And count me in the latter. I guess you too.
Yeah, and come to find out, a lot of people feel the same way I do. I'm not an anomaly in air medical. I think if you talk to, 10 air medical pilots, 8 of them will tell you, ugh, hate the nights, right? It's hard, it's challenging, it's 3 in the morning. You're flying into dark places, sometimes unapproved landing areas. It's all very exciting, but it's for the pay that I was getting paid at the time. Um, it felt very risky, right? You're out
Yeah.
of sleep, you're flying in these crazy areas. So I think that there's a misconception, like if you don't fly air medical, you have the view like you had, like it's this spectacular thing, and it's incredible, right? I don't know how many lives I got to save. I think I probably did close to 300 patient transports in my couple years of doing it, and I had an impact on all those people, and that's really cool that my skill could help, save that person on a day that they're having a really bad day. But literally within like the first week, I was like, uh-oh, like this dream that I've had forever is not really the right dream for me.
Careful what you wish for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. While we're on the subject of misconceptions, are there any other, because we have mostly a fixed wing audience over here, are there any other big misconceptions that people typically have about rotorcraft pilots?
You know, there's always like a little bit of a rift, between fixed wing and rotor wing. I mean, obviously rotor wing pilots are superior in all ways. There's no argument. Uh, no, look, I don't know, misconception. I think maybe the auto rotation, like, oh man, I never want to fly a helicopter because, if the engine goes out, you're toast. And you're not toast. You just don't glide as long as, say, an airplane will. But man, I was lucky enough to teach full downs for probably 3 years straight at Hillsboro. And I don't know how many thousands of full down auto rotations I've done in a Robinson R22, nonetheless, which is a
little
low,
hairier. I know this because they don't have a lot of inertia on those.
low
rotors.
inertia, underslung. It's all against you. And so I think that's a misconception. But otherwise, no, I don't think there's a ton of misconception. Look, the fixed wing world and the mission is very different most of the time than the helicopter mission. And I think if you're maybe a young person wanting to get into aviation, if you look at helicopters and you look at airplanes, it would be very separate paths. And so if that's something, and that's where you're at, look at both. And I think they each present really cool opportunities. It kind of just depends on the lifestyle that you want.
Yeah. What about on the sales side? I mean, you broker both types of aircraft. So what's the difference look like from your perspective selling a helicopter versus selling a jet or a turboprop?
Yeah, it's a great question. So NAAB, North American Aircraft Brokerage, which is our fixed wing brand, is only 6 or 7 months old. We've moved, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 airplanes, so not a ton. But within that time, we have definitely got to experience some of the differences. And even before we had an official brand, we had actually moved a couple airplanes by, coincidence. Client might have a jet or a turboprop, and we had the relationship, so we helped. By and large, transactionally very similar, right? Um, for us, our strategy has always been we list and then we market through direct marketing. So, we'll list an airplane or a helicopter, and then we pick up the phones and we call anyone and everyone we can that we think might be interested in that type of airplane, whether it's an upgrade. Say, like right now, we're about to push a Mirage out. Okay, so we're calling Malibu folks, right? We're calling Bonanza folks. We're calling all these people that might be interested in a Mirage. We do the same thing on the helicopter side. And that's been great for us because it helps move aircraft a little bit quicker. It also helps us get other listings. People, I think, enjoy the cold call in the sense of like, okay, most brokers just call because they want to broker my aircraft. They don't actually call with a value add. In our case, we're presenting you an aircraft option. So we always kind of say listings, but get listings. So as far as like listing goes, it's the same for us. We handle helicopter airplanes the same. The back end nuance, little things are different, and we're learning that. Helicopters on a pre-purchase inspection, very uncommon that the helicopter will fly anywhere to have that inspection done. And there's really no prescribed scope of the inspection. It's kind of whatever the purchaser wants the scope to be. And the pre-purchase provider will come on site, perform the inspection, put together a report, and they'll send it off. And so we see very inconsistent. Some providers do this, some providers do this. There's really no consistency. Whereas airplanes, they're more mobile, they're easier to fly places. By and large, they're going to go to a service center, right? If you're selling, say, we just closed on a CJ4. Well, that went to a Cessna service center in San Antonio. Did a full pre-buy, did an audit. They did the next inspection that was coming up. It's very, very professional, very curated, very easy, really, compared to some of the inconsistencies that we see. So I actually really enjoy the airplane side when it comes to the inspection. Also, airplanes are more simple, right? Helicopters have so many moving components, so many, you look at a tracking report for, say, I was looking at one for an Airbus 130 last night that we're selling out of New Zealand. The tracking sheet is like 55 pages, and that's just components and all the different TBOs and everything. So the big difference is the simplicity. Airplanes actually offer the simplicity. As far as the market, it's much more competitive, right? So we were able to gain market share fairly quick on the helicopter side. We were helicopter people talking to helicopter folks, essentially. I had the helicopter podcast and, push brand hard in that space because there's not a lot of brokers in it, really, that are solely focused. Airplanes, man, we're just a little fish in a big, big pond. So that's what we're navigating right now, is building those relationships with other brokers and, learning how to collaborate.
I'd say you just about throw a rock and hit an aircraft broker these days. So I know the market's pretty competitive on that side, but for either one, I guess, walk us through what a typical deal looks like on your side of it, or historically what you've seen, from the first inquiry to them signing on the dotted line and moving forward.
Yeah. Every deal's different, right? So it's hard to say like this is set in stone. It seems like one of the things I love about this job is that no one deal is alike. So even though I'm doing the same thing every day, it's like I'm doing something different. A negotiation might go this way or that way. A client might be really easy to sign up. A client might be really difficult. So it's hard to say like the exact, but I guess a standard would be, typically through direct marketing efforts, whether it's myself, one of my sales reps. Sometimes leads will come through the podcast or other marketing avenues. But, we'll start nurturing someone that comes into the fold. If they've expressed interest in selling an aircraft, we offer a free market eval, essentially trying to get a sense of what the aircraft should be listed for. We call it a listing strategy, which kind of encompasses, hey, how are we going to position your aircraft to be competitive? So that's that first step, right, is intaking all the material. And we do kind of require that up front, right? I want to see digitalized logs for helicopters. Airplanes is a little bit different, but I want to see as much as I can for both types of airframes. I want to get pictures. I want the person to feel like they've had to do a little work, honestly, because then they feel a little more connected to us.
Yeah.
And I want to give them an honest eval, right? I have to have all the information to do that. And so that sometimes can take 2 months, right? You have to kind of, hey, Ian, just following up, when you're ready to send those logbooks, man, we'd love to give you that eval. So you're always kind of chasing people. It doesn't seem like it's always a high priority to sell the aircraft until like one day your wife or someone's like, hey, the airplane or the helicopter has to go. And then it's like, oh my God, I got to sell it. Then they call you back. So there's a lot of this nurture. Once the aircraft gets listed, we go through kind of we call it a 76-step process of listing an aircraft. So it's kind of our internal proprietary way on how we list things. The aircraft gets presented to our team. All of my sales reps are incentivized financially to sell any of our aircrafts, whether they're the direct representative of it or not. So I want them to become familiar with it. We also use that as a time to test our rep and their knowledge on the aircraft that they're selling. So we ask all the crazy off-the-wall questions. We try to stump them a little bit, honestly, try to get them to think about anything that could come when you get an inquiry, an interested party. So we go through that. We do the listing. We do the direct marketing. We enter into negotiations. That's the pain point for my business, right? Sellers want too much and buyers don't want to pay enough. So that's like a big crux of what we do, is working between two individuals to find an equitable outcome. So we go through that process. We help with purchase agreements. We help with the escrow process, and then that eventually leads to a close. There's obviously inspections usually included in that, but that's kind of the general flow of a transaction.
Okay. One more from me, and then I'm gonna throw the mic back to Rob. But from a client perspective, because I have a little bit of history on both sides of this, and also with the selling. But from your experience on both sides of this, Heli and Jet so far, who's your favorite client?
My favorite clients are the clients that trust us, that really like know that we have their best interest. I think that unfortunately, because there's so many people that do what I do, especially in the airplane world, there's a lot of bad actors. I think if you could throw a rock, like you said, you might hit a broker that maybe doesn't have the same ethics that we have. And so I think that sometimes clients, when they start working with us, will put us in this broker pool of past experience, and it's typically a
Yeah.
negative experience. Sometimes I can see the writing on the wall and I can say, look, you have such a negative broker experience. There's nothing I can do that's going to make you feel good about working with anyone. I think your best bet is to just sell the aircraft yourself, just because sometimes there's just such a negative mindset around it. So my favorite client is the client that, trusts our professional opinion when it comes to eval and listing strategy. They trust the process. Negotiations can get very challenging sometimes. And you have some clients that don't necessarily always feel comfortable with the process, or they want to overstep, and then it kind of kills our leverage a little bit. So, yeah, those are the clients that I love the most. But by and large, man, we've been so lucky. We have great private owners. We have great companies that we work with. We have a ton of repeat because people like working with us. And so we truly have developed friendships through our clients.
And are you working primarily with flight departments or individuals?
I would say that, I haven't broken it down as a true percentage, but I'm guessing around 70% of our business is going to be with individuals.
And that's
30%.
in the helicopter realm
Yeah.
primarily as well.
Yeah. And right now in the airplane realm, it's honestly been all private. There hasn't been we haven't worked with a company or an operator.
You're still new. All right. We'll check back in with you another year.
We
That
do.
may
We
change.
are working on a fun project with a new 135 startup out of Reno called Freedom Air, and we are helping them bring people into their certificate, essentially, educating them on the idea of acquiring an aircraft, how we can help you acquire an aircraft, because acquisition is also a service we provide, and how can we then have Freedom Air help you manage that, fly it when you're not flying it, essentially. But that's our only really operator relationship at this time.
All right. So, while we're talking about acquiring clients, I imagine that the helicopter podcast is possibly a form of biz dev. What really truly inspired you to start podcasting?
Yeah, so first off, I'm a consumer of podcasts. I love podcasts. I love audiobooks. So I love reading, but I don't actually read. I just listen to books. So audiobooks have been something I've been doing for a long time. I mean, like going back to high school, I was the kid. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get that on cassette. That's just the way my brain works. If I'm reading off a page, I start thinking about other things. So hearing it, I just consume better. And so always loved audiobooks, and then, stumbled on podcasts. I think just like a lot of people like us, it's kind of the cool thing in this last few years. And I started looking for aviation specific podcasts, found a couple that were okay. Started looking for helicopter, really found none. So I'm like, well, maybe there's a hole or a gap there. But then I was like, well, but is it really a big enough hole that I want to fill, right? I mean, it's a small industry. And so I started doing it just kind of on a whim. And yeah, it just blossomed into something way more than I ever thought it could. And the purpose was to provide essentially free content for helicopter people. And at the end of the day, helicopter people are who I serve in my sales business. And so it's been a great tool for business development and customer acquisition, specifically on the aircraft acquisition side. We get a lot of private individuals that have found their success in life. They've always had this dream of flying helicopters. They're pursuing that now. They've stumbled upon my podcast, don't really talk much about myself or my sales business on the podcast. As you know, I just have cool guests like you, Rob, where we talk about eVTOL or we talk about air medical or whatever we talk about with that specific guest. But because I'm becoming, a voice of that sector and that part of the aviation industry, it's been awesome. And now I go to VAI, which is Verticon, which is our big show, formerly HAI. And I get to feel kind of like a helicopter guy. Like people want my picture, and it's a cool experience to be able to connect. And so, yeah, the alternative motive, 100%, was to drive business to Sellacopter.
Now, obviously, there's the business angle, but I've tuned in and seen some of your highlights, and you've had some fun guests over the course of your podcast. How many seasons are you in so far?
So I never broke up over a season.
One very long
So
one.
we're just going. I take the Joe Rogan approach where it's just a number. So I think we're somewhere in the 150s now. So yeah, essentially I've been doing it. I did it for like 10 episodes early on a few years ago. Then I stopped. And then I picked back up. And I think this coming spring will be 3 years of consistently recording and putting out a new episode every single Tuesday. So 2.5 years straight at this point of doing this.
That's fantastic. That is legit. Ian and I have just celebrated our 15th. So
That's awesome.
We got a long way to go.
Consistency is the important part with the podcast, right? Like I rank high on podcasts, and that's because a lot of people just do one podcast and then they never do it again. So it's not hard to do that. So that's awesome that you guys have hit 15. Congrats.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. All right. But back to your podcast. So over the years, I saw, this is one of your later ones. Maybe I think it was like about a month ago or so. You had the flight coordinator for Top Gun Maverick on
Kevin.
the show.
Yeah.
And that was awesome. That was incredible. Tell us about your favorite guests and the most surprising interviews you've had so far.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring up that one specifically because I'm thinking in my head, if you ask me my favorite one, Kevin's always a safe bet. Kevin as a human is a great person, and he's a generational aerial coordinator, stunt pilot in Hollywood. Very, very small amount of people do what he does. And to do it at the level and the safety that he does it at is, insane. Not to mention it's cool to talk to him about, flying weekly with Tom Cruise and teaching him how to fly the A-Star. And, a lot of the sequences where you see Tom doing all of his helicopter flying, Kevin probably taught him how to do that. So really neat to have those conversations. Other than that, man, I've been so lucky. I've got to talk to so many cool people that I never thought I would have the opportunity. Aaron Fitzgerald, he's the Red Bull helicopter pilot. That was a really neat conversation. I've got to talk to leaders of big OEMs. David Smith of Robinson Helicopters has become a bit of a regular. I talked to Bruno, he's the leader of Airbus on the helicopter side, of course. So I've got to talk to some pretty heavy hitters. Daniel, I'm going to mess up his last name, Alfenbender. He's the CEO of Air Zermatt, which is a famous helicopter program in the Swiss Alps. They have a show on Netflix called The Horn, kind of this iconic helicopter brand. I got to podcast with him recently. So it's hard to say if there's a specific favorite. This guy, Rob Hoffman, man, we talked about eVTOL recently. So yeah, man, we just, I've been so lucky. It's so cool. And big thanks to Vertical Magazine because I have that connection now. It's given me credibility to be able to go out and book some pretty cool guests.
Nice.
That's wonderful. Honestly, living the dream right now. All right, let's just take a kind of bird's eye view of the industry as a whole right now. Where do you see yourself in the rotorcraft market in the next 5 years or so?
Yeah, that's interesting. So the last couple of years have been hard fought, and I still kind of continue I'm fighting very hard for every single deal. Whether people thought the last administration was kind of whatever, which I think caused some economic concerns and considerations. Again, not political statement, just the truth of what I heard a lot was, people were worried with the last administration. New administration comes in, there's lots of hopes, lots of excitement, and then you slap all these tariffs, all these other things are changing, and you don't know, right? we have aircraft right now in New Zealand. Well, is that tariffed now? Well, you talk to 3 customs brokers, they say, yeah, that is tariffed at 10%. You talk to 2 more, they say it's not tariffed. And so there's market confusion when it's coming along the lines of that. So it's kind of really halted our global touch right now. Unless an aircraft is built in the United States, which is kind of a guaranteed renaturalization, a way to get around the tariff, we're still kind of navigating that. And I think a lot of people are still holding their breath on like, okay, what's happening next? Because it just seems like there's so much uncertainty. There's, trouble in the Middle East. There's the war in Ukraine and Russia. There's all these things that are happening that I think just affect the mindset of people and their willingness to spend money. And so that's what I've felt the last couple of years on the helicopter side. There's maybe some new tax incentives that are coming back. One in particular would be like the 100% depreciation. I'm by no means a tax expert, but you can use an aircraft for business purposes, and if you're a high net worth individual, there's some seriously awesome tax benefits to doing that, especially now with this potential of the bonus depreciation coming back.
Yeah.
So I think in the next 2 years, 3 years, I'm hoping to see inflation coming down, people wanting to spend money, people buying aircraft again. Maybe the rates can come down a little bit. When the rates were sub 4% for aviation financing, that was a great time. Everyone and their mother, no matter how much money you had, was financing. It was same as cash nearly. So we were extremely busy during that whole COVID low interest rate era, essentially. 5 years from now, look, the landscape is changing. I know that you're a big proponent of eVTOL. I think even recently there were some announcements about trying to push some of that technology even faster, and some of the things that the president is deciding to kind of say put into law on, how we could maybe move quicker in some of those spaces. So I'm very interested to see where that goes. I think it would be stupid not to start aligning myself with some of those new style of aircraft that are coming to the market, because that could really be the new future. So very, very optimistic to see where the world goes, specific to the eVTOL stuff. There's also some other cool helicopters in the pipe, like the Hill helicopter, which I'm kind of like 50-50 if that's going to happen or not, personally. So yeah, we'll see what the next 5 years brings, but I'm guessing it will be hard fought and exciting like it always is.
Nice, nice. Thinking about aircraft that currently exist, right? What's your favorite aircraft, whether it's fixed or rotor wing? What are you excited to fly, or what are you most excited to sell? I guess it's kind of a two-part question.
Well, I'd love to sell like a Global Express, for 60 mil. That would be awesome. Um, right now, favorite aircraft to fly, and the experiences that I have, I love the 407. It's been out of the aircraft that I've had the opportunity to fly, the 407, the Bell 407's been my favorite. Doesn't negate that I've loved the time I had in the R-22, which is crazy to think, but some of the best flight experience I've ever had have been in a Robinson R-22 or in an R-44. But yeah, 407 is just an incredible machine. I'm excited to just keep learning specific to the airplane world. Right now, we are consuming so much in regards to learning about these platforms. We're on a CJ3 kick right now, and we're helping some folks potentially on an acquisition of a CJ3 or a CJ3 Plus. And it's really fun to walk into that and try to consume as much as you can. And learn and kind of become an expert in that. So that's what I'm excited for. I'm excited to continue to learn about airplanes, grow my knowledge. I worked line service for years, so I have like that savant knowledge of like, that's that and that's that. I have good identification. But getting into the weeds and learning about these aircraft is something I'm really excited about.
Awesome. Leaning on your experience to this point, I know you consider yourself a continuous learner here, right? But what's probably your most memorable moment to date in the air, or in a deal?
Yeah. Well, luckily nothing too memorable in the air, which is nice. I don't want memorable experiences.
It's a positive in a certain way, yeah.
So nothing crazy. Knock on wood. I've had great, good maintenance aircraft that operate well. I think some of the coolest moments I've had in a helicopter are also some of the scariest. Like I said, I didn't love getting out of bed at 3 a.m. and I didn't love landing in dark holes at 3 a.m. But when I look back at it, I'm like, that's pretty cool, right? Flying under MVG, flying in this little FM road in the middle of dark 30 Texas, doing cool things. So those are probably the kind of the neatest experiences. And then just a lot of the transaction that we work with can get very complicated. There's a lot of problem solving that goes, and I take great satisfaction of being able to navigate the complexity of each transaction and getting it done. We have a high success of closing deals, even when it feels like there's no way that we could close the deal, whatever the hurdle is. And so I love the problem solving aspect. And then through that, you learn something new, right? You learn, okay, well, this worked there and I can bring that to this. So nothing specific I can point out of it's constant. Like I'm in 5 negotiations right now and they're all intense. They're all kind of fun. They all also kind of suck. And I'm guessing that in a couple of weeks, I'm going to feel really good about all 5 of them. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take things away from what I liked, what we did good, what we didn't do good, how we could do better in the future. That's what I love about this business, man, is it's, to me, it's like a sport. Like you can refine yourself to communicate with other people a lot better, specifically through the negotiation.
Nice. I know we're coming up on time. I have a couple just kind of off the cuff questions I want to run by you real quick before we close out. But you said you're expecting any moment now a new jet broker or heli broker to join the family. But besides that, what are you most excited about the next 3 to 5 years, either personally or professionally?
Oh, 100% welcoming our first child. Literally, I hope she's not, there already. It's like we're hours away. That's what I'm most excited for. I'm a little bit older, telling the gray of my beard. So, I'm a mature age. I think that be starting my parental journey, but it's something that I've always wanted to do. I have an amazing wife. She's also part of my business. She does all of our admin. We've worked hand in hand together for nearly 5 years. So I am so excited to grow our family. We're hoping to have maybe another kid as well. And I'm excited for our business. We've made some significant changes on how we've structured our business, how we're training our reps, how we're having the 2 brands have synergy. That was complicated. That wasn't that was an issue that we were having, and we've really worked hard to kind of now be synergized with our 2 brands. So I think, man, we can only go up from here. I'm excited to be a father. I'm excited to grow my businesses. Yeah, that's what I live for.
Excellent. I mean, it sounds like your wife is paying you back for dragging you to the middle of nowhere, Texas. Although maybe not the middle of nowhere. You said
We're in Austin, man.
Yeah,
We had
yeah.
yeah.
No,
Not a
that's the
terrible
middle of
place to go.
somewhere,
Yeah.
That's
actually.
the middle of everything.
Yeah.
We had a lot of good times, man. And yeah, the wife. Look, sometimes you make decisions, and other people will poo poo on those decisions. I had a lot of people think that leaving my career at Hillsboro at that time was really dumb. And people would say some fairly pointed things about, this is what you should expect and this is the best outcome for your life moving forward based on this one decision. And man, if I would have listened to those people, I don't know where I would be today. I don't know if I would be in this same spot that I'm at. And so, I love that. I love this idea where you look back at life and you're like, man, if I didn't make that one decision that was really hard to make and people were kind of poo-pooing on, where would I be? And so I followed my heart on that one, going to Texas, and it led in so many weird directions to get me to this point. So I'm grateful for that.
No, I can relate extremely well on that. I was drugged kicking and screaming to Iowa by my now ex-wife, but at the time, not why we're divorced, but it doesn't help. Iowa's not as fun as Austin, Texas. I
I was going to say, I've been to Des Moines, not that fun.
Yeah, no. I mean, we call it the Austin of the Midwest. Maybe, I don't know.
Sure.
But no, it led me to my career in business aviation and where I am today too. And if I had said no, hell no, I'm not moving to Iowa, I wouldn't be here. So that's cool. It's a good synchrony there. Last thing for you though, and then I'm done talking. But what do you do to give back? What do you do in your spare time or through your business to give back to the community at large and where you're at locally?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great question. So the podcast is a way of giving back. I am now, it's licensed out, so there is a compensation part of my podcast now, which is cool. That was never the
It
goal.
doesn't start that way.
Fingers crossed at some point here.
So
Yeah.
that's yeah. Look, and I'm not retiring anytime soon, but that's awesome. But I do think that, as you guys know, the podcast is a lot of work. It takes time to get guests. You got to go and put yourself out there, just like I connected with you, Rob, on LinkedIn. You're always prospecting. You have to go through the production. I mean, it's a lot of time, effort, and energy. And I did it for a long time, unpaid, and I was happy to do it. I looked at it as an investment. By and large, most of the DMs that I get on a daily basis specific to the podcast have nothing to do with me making money at Sellacopter. It's about people being impacted, of changing their career. They're finally following their dream to become a pilot. I mean, all these amazing, cool stories. I mean, the idea that I've had this impact from my little studio here in Redmond, Oregon is really cool. So that's, I think, a way I give back. We've donated thousands of dollars of profit to a couple organizations. One specifically was called the Dirt Therapy Project, which we sponsored for probably nearly 2 years. It helped get veterans on mountain bikes. Essentially, Jonathan, the guy that started that, he was a Marine, came back, had some severe PTSD, and he got on a mountain bike, and it really helped him. And I'm an avid mountain biker, and so that was a cool organization. We did some really cool events with them, including events with helicopters. And we helped financially support them. They actually ended up getting absorbed by a big, cool organization. And so we decided to put our efforts into some smaller organizations. My wife and I are near and dear of rescuing animals. So helicopters to rescue is kind of a big gap, but we do also, as a company, support a local nonprofit here in Central Oregon that helps essentially get dogs, all dogs at this point. They don't do cats or anything, but dogs that are on the kill list at shelters, specifically in California or Texas, and gets them to this place in Oregon. So CORE is what it's called, Central Oregon Rehab Rehome, and that's been really fun. Our dog is actually a rescue. He was hours away from being put down, and we were able to save him. So, yeah, that's how we give back. And we're always looking for ways to continue to explore ways, industry specific. I've always thought maybe doing a scholarship for aviation training would be fun. Haven't done it yet, but look, the sky's the limit, right? Excited to do things like that.
Excellent. Thanks, man. It's good to learn all those things.
That's really wonderful. And Halsey, I mean this sincerely, it's very, very inspirational stuff here. And I think you really, by example, kind of showed us and our listeners kind of what it means to follow your heart and to have confidence in yourself and to basically take unconventional steps in your career and how it's all worked out so well for you. So on that note, how can the listeners find you or your podcast online?
Yeah, absolutely. Heli Halsey is my preferred handle for social platforms. Also, LinkedIn is a great place. I love LinkedIn. So just my name, Halsey Schider. Come find me. Love networking. I think, Rob, you and I had talked about that. I mean, LinkedIn is such a awesome platform for B2B especially. So you can find me there. The Helicopter Podcast is part of the Vertical Helicast platform. We're on all major platforms, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you may enjoy your podcasts. We're also on YouTube, the Helicopter Podcast. We also do some really fun collaborations with Vertical on the Vertical YouTube. So you can check out some of the content that we've collaborated with Vertical Magazine.
Excellent.
Wonderful. All right. So that's it for this episode of The Crosscheck. A huge thanks to Halsey Schider for giving us a cockpit to closer perspective on what it takes to thrive in business aviation today. Be sure to check out the Helicopter Podcast and connect with him on LinkedIn to follow his latest moves, along with sneak previews of his incredible podcast guests. If you enjoyed today's show, don't forget to like and follow us on your favorite podcast platform and share this episode with a colleague or friend. Your review or feedback is greatly appreciated and helps to spread the word. We will see you all next week with a new episode of The Crosscheck.